And hello and welcome to the Clouding the Senses with Valendar. Now, I was originally going to have a guest on today about engraving. Unfortunately, he never did get back to me via email. So, this week we're going to talk about the really fancy weirdo coils. Okay, I've got echo. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Well, now, here's the thing. Everyone knows what a basic coil looks like, but then you get weird things. By that, I mean things like this. This is one of the creations by a coil artist known as Didaptex. I think that's how you pronounce it. And obviously something like that could never, ever work in almost any atomizer. So, the problem with this is, is there a point where a coil stops being efficient and starts being just goofy, or is this potentially usable? I don't know. Then we have this. This is the arc, also by Didaptex. And effectively all it is just it goes over. There's really no advantage to this particular kind of coil except it looks cooler and it might hold a bit more wick for you to, if you want to hold more juice above the line. Another one that he created is this thing called the crow's foot, where instead of actually wrapping it, it's bent and twisted until it forms a cradle, more so than a coil. I do not know how effective that is. And then he gets really, really interesting with these. This is a classic example of what's called an extended negative build. What that means is he takes a conductive wire around the outside of the atomizer, connecting the negative sides, and then uses that as the base for the coil, rather than going directly through the negative posts. And yeah, again, I don't know how efficient that would be. It's based on, this particular one is based on chain link, it looks like. Those are some examples of some amazing coils that look great, but what can they really do? Are they just so difficult that they're not worth it even if they did? So we move on to things that actually make sense. This is what's called a staged heating coil. It has Clapton wire on the one side parallel with regular wire. And what happens here is Clapton wire heats up a little bit slower than regular wire. The regular wire heats up faster and it shares heat with the Clapton. Technically, Clapton wire in and of itself is a form of staged heating. The center wire heats up faster than the outer wire, but the outer wire gives it a lot more surface area to vaporize more juice. Step up from the Clapton is the fused Clapton. Now, a Clapton coil is basically a given gauge of Canthal or other wire with a much smaller gauge wrapped around it. With a fused Clapton like this, it's two center wires and the thinner wire wrapped around and then evened out, so it has more of a flatter surface to work with. Another example of this, which actually wicks a little bit better, is the staggered fused Clapton. Basically, with this, a Clapton coil is wrapped in such a way that there's a gap between each. And then two such Claptons are side by side and another level of wire is wrapped around. This gives you that visible webbing between the two Claptons. And then if you really want to get fancy, there's the alien spine. This is a form of Clapton where the original outer wire had originally been wrapped as a Clapton and then unwound and rewrapped, which gives it this wavy, irregular look to it. And everything I've heard is that you could drop a drop of juice on the one side of that Clapton and it will immediately wick all the way around the coil to the other side. Another type of coil that a lot of people are using lately, especially our own Aries, is the vertebrae. I don't think this is one of Aries, but it is an example of what sort of thing that people are doing. And finally, this one I saw that just my eyes just about bugged out of my head. The dragon scale. Now, my problem with this particular one is it's going so far out there that I don't see it sharing very much heat with the outer wrapping. You know, it looks like someone took a Clapton, pulled the center wire out, and then instead of stretching, they just wrapped it directly around another wire, making it like this. But again, it's not sharing that much heat. I'm not sure it's really that efficient or that worth it. Now, I'm a simple man when it comes to coils. I either do single, parallel, or dual twisted. I've seen some amazing works. I've seen things, but I have to wonder, at what point is it just not worth the effort? Yes, it might have tremendously greater surface area and produce more vapor, more flavor, but at what point is it just not worth the effort? You may or may not have heard Nitrobex, one of the other hosts on this channel, making mention of when he goes to a meet or goes out anywhere, he uses just a simple dual 6-wrap or dual 5-wrap. Because if a coil goes, you can just snag, wrap, pop, and he's done. On the other hand, you can actually walk into many vape shops nowadays and buy a length of Clapton. You can order Clapton wire, or in some cases vertebrae wire, directly from other people, from other stores. Is this something that we really want to do? I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying if Clapton wire becomes the thing, what happens to people who just don't like it? You know, you've got Clapton, you got fused Clapton, you got staggered fused Clapton, you've got, you know, vertebrae, which is more of a cousin of the twisted. At what point is it just fancy for the sake of being fancy, like those earlier Ditapex coils that I showed? I really couldn't tell you. On the other hand, for those who do enjoy them, they do in fact seem to put out more vapor, more flavor than a simple single wrap coil or a parallel or twisted. So I guess at this point the aesthetics of it are, at what point does the aesthetics of the flavor and the vapor balance out against the aesthetics of, ooh, that looks cool? That last coil that I showed, for example, I don't think that would outperform an alien wire Clapton or a staggered fuse Clapton. It's not transferring enough heat to the outer wire. Well, that's about all I've got on that for this portion of the show. However, I will very likely have a guest coming on in a few minutes. Most of you know who it is. And that means that for right now, it's time for me to go ahead and open up the door and let the furballs in, and we get to the fully interactive segment. I'll be right back.